It is extremely important to me that the stories we share are authentic and that we strive to tell both perspectives. I've been a local to this remarkable island 3 times and a tourist too many times to count. Our Home Your Holiday celebrates Aruba. There's a reason why Arubans are so patriotic, and there's a reason why visitors keep coming back. Let's dive into the elements that makes Aruba our home and the perfect holiday. I'm currently sitting in an empty ballroom, but for the Earth Day Forum 2024, these seats were all filled with important stakeholders to tackle climate change. It requires a collective force, a collective action in order to promote and progress climate resilience. Let me repeat that, collective action. So, the Ministry of Nature hosted yet another Earth Day Forum. But what are these forums all about and what is the significance to them? Let's find out. On Earth Day, a second annual forum was hosted by the Ministry of Nature. The discussion centered on climate resilience, and many step forwards have been taken to tackle climate change on our small island nation. A National Climate Resilience Council was launched. The Climate and Ocean Risk Vulnerability Index Agreement, also known as the Corvi Agreement, was signed by many public and private stakeholders. The Corvi assessment will be led by the Stimson Center, an institute from the U.S. The Corvi assessment is significant because they will provide Aruba with data points and indicators on how we should deal with climate change on the island. Additionally, a climate atlas for Aruba has also been signed. All these developments are steps forward to taking action against climate change.
For me, this is highly important. For years or decades, we have been talking about this subject, but what was lacking is clear action. And today, on a national level, we brought everybody together from the government. My ministry and the Ministry of Geoffrey Weaver is also co-financing the Corvi study, together with 13 partners out of the private sector. Together, 15 partners, we are financing this study to make sure that Aruba is ready in the near future to deal with climate change.
Attendees of the Earth Day Forum can see Aruba is on the right track.
What I thought about the forum, it was super interesting and super interesting that we are going in the right direction. We are planning and we are creating a roadmap to mitigate these climate change effects and impacts.
It's really important to note that these steps in the right direction cannot happen without collective action. Aruba needs partners from the private and public sector to come together on the serious topic of climate change. The Corvi assessment signed at the forum has 9 major stakeholders.
Climate change affects all of us, so we need to do this together. And I think that is the message when preparing. We've been preparing together with my team almost for 2 years now to bring everybody together on a national level to deal with this. And to be honest with you, everybody felt the urgency and also made their commitment to help and prepare this. And I think that is the most important part, that you see individually we can do it alone, but once we do it together, we will achieve a broader objective for the entire island. And I think that is the message we got from today, with everybody signing as well these agreements. It proves that everybody is willing to work together to make sure we can achieve our common goal.
I also think that having multiple stakeholders involved in order to fight against climate change is really necessary. We need multidisciplinary approaches.
Minister Ursula Adens also says one of the priorities is tackling climate change on a national level, partnering up with credible international research centers.
And that's why we also took a national approach. The National Climate Resilience Council is based on a quintet model that is also not only focusing on private but public sector, but we also include academia, NGOs, and also the international partners that can help us both with the finance but also with knowledge when it comes to dealing with climate change. And for us, this was highly important, because tapping into outsourced knowledge and finance will definitely help us move forward.
3 panels were held to dissect climate change. Knowledgeable local and international panelists provided insights to climate change and nature, which the audience were able to take away from.
The Parque Aricoc, basically they mentioned the thing about nature being very fluid and also knowing no boundaries. It's also the case with humans. So we should remove that human instinct of putting boundaries and understanding that nature also knows no boundaries. We need to start building with nature, or also understanding that nature is with us everywhere we go. So that really struck me, that when she gave the example of the cascabel, I was like, right, okay. It's not specifically exclusive to Parque Arikok, it's all over Aruba. So that was one thing that struck me.
Sometimes you hear about how a joke starts, somebody walks into a bar. Well, in our case, it's...
In the case of Aruba's National Library, it's more like when a tourist walks into a library. Stacy is the repeat visitor who connected Peter and his team to the Internet Archive. Have you seen this Wired article floating around on your Facebook feed? The headline reads, "The Internet Archive just backed up an entire Caribbean island." Let's back up here. No pun intended. What exactly is the Internet Archive? According to AI, the Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library that aims to provide universal access to all knowledge. Good to know. For the last 15 years, with Peter at the helm of digitization at Aruba's National Library, he and the small library team have been working on digitizing articles, documents, photos, and more. But the connection one tourist made between the island's library with the Internet Archive propelled them to a major step forward.
That chance visit in 2018 was brought us a solution that we were trying to figure out on ourselves and didn't have the money or the means or the structural means for anyway. It was just an experiment, something, let's just do it, and it grew into something that now has, well, one of the biggest digital collections in the Caribbean, the biggest collection in Papiamento.
Unbeknownst to me, Aruba was one disaster away from losing all our historical printed work, along with other tangible resources pertinent to the island's history as well as culture.
Although our collections are not in imminent danger, we're still on an island, we still have limited means, but we've been preserving our collections over the last 75 years. We have documents in our collections dating back to 1577, so the imminent danger is not there, but there's always a risk. We have power outages, leaks. We know that we have to safeguard our history, our culture, all those limited run publications that maybe we only have the only copy of, or one of the only copies here in our library, that we need to preserve that for the next generation.
Although you're not in the hurricane belt, you know, you're still, you know, a fire can happen, anything can happen, a flood. I mean, we had an earthquake in New Jersey last week, which is abnormal. So anything could happen, and, you know, all those materials would just vanish and your history would be gone. And that to me is horrible. So I made it a mission, just, you know, in any, you know, small, significant way that I could, to get those works online. So if there were a tragedy of some sort, those would be preserved forever, and that history would remain forever.
This elaborate digitized collection all about Aruba you see here didn't happen overnight. It took years to accomplish.
We have one colleague that has been saving up all the digital newspapers for the last 15, 20 years and is still doing that, and that's a big contribution to our digital collections.
The team at Aruba's National Library continues to work hard to digitize our island's history in order to make it more accessible to everyone. Peter shares some rare and precious things that you can find on the collection, including
our oldest book that we have. It's from the year 1577, and it's written in French. That's interesting. So there's a couple of limiting factors in getting access to information. Traditionally, you have a book written in French on an island that doesn't really speak French. It's a book that's hidden and preserved, well preserved in a special collection in a building on the island. And once we digitized this and made it available, it now has its title page. If you look it up and look up the author on Wikipedia, you'll see this title page with this stamp on it, given by one of our early librarians. And now it's one of the most visited and most used books in our digital collection.
Our visitors' love for the island will forever continue to amaze me.
Everyone that visits there, in my opinion, falls in love. You know, love at first sight when you go to Aruba, because there's really nothing negative about the island. I can't think of one thing, to be honest. You have everything. You have the desert, you have, you know, the ocean, it's just the food, everything. There's just so many things. The culture is so rich. Even the art is outstanding, you know, on the buildings. So what's not to love? So why wouldn't you preserve that?
Visit collection.aw to see anything related to Aruba's history, heritage, culture, and so much more.
For me, it's the biggest time of the year.
Oliver is referring to High Winds. Aruba has been home to the High Winds event for more than 35 years. The annual premier water sporting event in the Caribbean features windsurfing and kite surfing. As the event has grown, other sporting activities have been added to the list. Aruba Tourism Authority is one of the main partners of High Winds that powers this exhilarating 5-day water affair. It's certainly important to have committed local partners such as ATA to continue supporting international events like this one year after year, because it makes a significant impact for various members of our local community. This includes Oliver. You heard Oliver earlier in the video. High Winds is the most important and best week for this 15-year-old. Oliver started windsurfing when he was 10. Something about the sport just clicked for him immediately. He's been competing in different categories of high winds for the last 3 years. For 2024, he will be competing in the juniors windsurfing category. To Oliver, windsurfing isn't just a sport. Being out on the water is his happy place.
For me, as soon as I start over there at the water, it's just a completely different zone for me. Like, I'm zoned out from all the schoolwork that I have to do, and just being on the water just makes me happy.
High Winds gives kids like Oliver the chance to see how his skill set compares to other surfers around his age. He can measure his abilities against young local, regional, and international participants.
Well, for me, in the whole year, I practice, and also practice against my rivals. And then when I go to the High Winds, it's really just focused, and then it's game on, and then I can see also how the other competitors are doing in their career.
Aruba has all the elements needed to host this elite water sporting event. Oliver chose one of the best sports to dedicate himself to on the island.
Because I've been searching for a lot of sports that I was trying. So I did tennis before, football really didn't like that much. Beach tennis I did for a long time. And then as soon as I went to windsurfing, it was just, well, this is actually really fun. I like the wind, like the weather. I enjoy this.
And Aruba, you would say, is a perfect destination for windsurfer.
Yes, that is true, yeah.
It's great for the youth to be active, but it is certainly an added bonus to do it with family. Oliver's dad, Rainier, is actually the one who introduced him to windsurfing, and now they share a passion that brings them closer together. It gives them the opportunity to spend more time together to connect over a shared interest. So your dad got you into windsurfing?
Yes, my dad got me into windsurfing.
And do you still windsurf with your dad?
Yeah, I do actually windsurf with my dad often.
So was it kind of a nice bonding experience?
It is a nice bonding experience. He learns from me, I learn from him, and then we all learn from together. And I just teach him some points, where you should stand, where you shouldn't, how high, how low. So it's really a strategic setup points.
So he showed you windsurfing and now you're teaching him.
Yeah, it's funny actually.
One of the best things about high winds is the diversity in the participants. We just met Oliver and his dad, who are both competing. There's my uncle Arnold Liu, who is an avid kite surfer and has done very well in the past in the long distance kite surf category. And there's my friend Yahumain Alaman, who will be competing at High Winds 2024. Success to all the competitors.